All right, Busters. So today I thought we'd work on a reverse dyed project. Yep, we're going to work on a black shirt. And I was at the Dollar Tree just looking around. It's amazing what you can find there for tie-dye projects. And I found a wooden, they call it a wooden frame, and it's in kind of their craft section. I thought we'd use that for a stencil to lay on the shirt and then spray some bleach on it. And then maybe we'll tie up a mandala later on, do a reverse dye project with this. So let's get into it. Well, hi YouTube, and welcome back to all my Buster buddies. Hey, it's your big kahuna here, Brad, and this is Brad's Boredom Busters, your tie-dye art channel. Yes, I'm probably still recovering from my foot surgery, so I made this video prior to my surgery, so you had something to watch while I was laid up recovering. All right, yeah, I thought this would be kind of cool. Like I said, I was in the Dollar Tree, happened to see what they call this little wooden frame. Thought that would make a cool stencil. So what we're going to do is take a black shirt, I'll put it on one of my shirt forms, lay this right on top. I've got my bleach solution, 50-50 water and bleach in a spray bottle. And so then after I lay the little wood form on the shirt, we'll just spray all over it to bleach out everything else but what's underneath the stencil. And after that, we'll neutralize the shirt. We'll wash it. Then I'll have to soak it in some soda ash solution. We'll bring it back in here, and then I'll do a tie-up. We'll do some sort of mandala in the center of this little stencil, and I might extend it actually beyond the stencil, but we'll tie it up probably with some sinew just to give it some interest. Yeah, let's see how this turns out. So what you're going to need for this project is 100% cotton black shirt. What I did, and I like to have the shirt damp prior to spraying the bleach on it, so it doesn't beat up on the surface. It has it allows the bleach to absorb into the fabric easier. So I put the shirt just in my laundry sink, got it wet, put that in my washer and spun out as much moisture as I could. So I've done that. Shirt's waiting for me over here. I've also got my shirt form on the table, so we'll load the shirt onto the form and then just lay the stencil where you want it, and then I'll spray that out. So you'll need a spray bottle with your bleach solution in that. Like I say, if you want to pick up one of these little wood frames, they're at the Dollar Tree in the craft section. And so that'll be about it for the beginning of this project. Like I say, later on when we do the reverse dye, we're going to need soda ash solution to soak the shirt in, and then you'll want to spin out that, and then we'll bring it back in here, do our fold up. You'll need sinew and a pair of scissors to trim the sinew, and that'll probably be about it. Maybe rubber bands to bind up maybe the other part of the body of the shirt that isn't getting tied up as a mandala. So anyway, that should be about the size of it. Let's get into it and see how it turns out. All right, Buster, so here we are at the work table. Like I say, I had just soaked the shirt in water, put it in the washer to spin out as much moisture as I can to help break the surface tension, so when we spray the bleach on, it absorbs easier. So I've got the shirt. I've got a shirt form. I make my shirt forms. I have shirt forms out of two different materials. This one here is out of masonite, or sometimes called tempered hardboard. You buy this in 4x8 sheets, and then you'd have to cut it to fit your shirt. But I've also made them out of foam core, which you can also get sheets of foam core at the Dollar Tree. And then same thing, just lay it out and cut it, with a craft knife or a box knife, and to fit your shirt. And so I'll slide that on here next. after we spray the shirt, with the stencil on it, I probably didn't mention this in the intro, but so after the bleach kind of works its magic on the shirt, I will be mixing up a neutralizing solution with hydrogen peroxide. So that's like 10 parts water to 1 part hydrogen peroxide. So usually I do either 10 cups or 20 cups and then 1 or 2 cups of hydrogen peroxide, depending on how many shirts I need to neutralize. So I'll show you how I set up my neutralizing solution once we get to that point. So let me get the shirt on the form and then we'll keep going. All right, let's do that. All right, I think I'm happy with that. All right, so our little frame is going to go right there. Kind of center it under the collar as best you can. Eyeball that. I like that. Okay. So one thing I suggest doing, see, I've got my solution in this bottle already. I'm going to open up a window, put a fan in the window, because when you spray this, the fumes, because it's aerosol, is kind of strong. If you're not in a very well ventilated area, I suggest you wear a respirator mask. For me, this is adequate enough here. So let me get that set up. I think I'll put on an apron also just to protect my clothes in case I get any splashing or drips. So I'll be right back. All right, got my lovely old paint apron on, and I've got a fan in the window. So I think we're ready to go. So like I say, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to spray pretty much the whole front of the shirt. I may leave kind of like a vignette, maybe not do all the bleach down here. I might leave an area of black there and maybe an area of black around the shoulders and the sleeves, but certainly the whole center here is going to be bleached out. All right, Buster, so I think that's going to be all the bleach I apply. Let's see how that kind of looks. Okay. All right, let's let that work for a little while, and I'll come right back. I'm going to turn off the camera for a little bit, but once this kind of changes color a lot more, then I'll come right back and show you how it looks. All right, Busters, so this is sat for a little while. I'm going to let it sit a little longer. I'll take you out into the garage with me. I'll show you how I mix up the neutralizing solution. But for now, let's do a reveal and see how this came out. Oh, pretty good. I got a little bit of bleed under here. It's not as crisp as I had hoped. I might have saturated the shirt a little too much, but I did want to have a good amount of of bleaching effect to the black. So, oh well, it is what it is, but it's still cool. Anyway, all right, so let's go out and mix up some neutralizing solution, and then we'll get the shirt into it. All right, I'll see you out there in a minute. Okay, Busters, so here we are out at the laundry sink. I'm going to mix up the neutralizing solution here in this bucket. I've got this large measuring cup. It has marks up to 6 cups. I will mix up probably 10 cups, so it'll be 6 and then 4. And then after that, then I'll just put in 1 cup of hydrogen peroxide, and that'll go into the water. If I don't think it's enough solution to cover the shirt, then I'll just repeat that, so it'll end up being 20 cups and 2 cups in hydrogen peroxide. But let's start with 10 and 1. All right, let's get going. All right, and now I need 1 cup of the hydrogen peroxide. And actually that does look like enough for this one shirt. So that's good. Let's just agitate that to incorporate it. All right. So let me go grab the shirt, and I'll come right back out here, and we'll stick that in our neutralizing solution. I'll be right back. All right, Busters, here's our shirt. Let's get that in the neutralizing solution. Just agitate that around. And you can see it turns cloudy. That means it's doing its job. And then just let that sit and soak in here for a good 15 minutes before you take it out to wash it. So that's going to sit and neutralize, and then after that, like I said, I'm going to put it in the laundry, we'll wash it out, and so we'll just wash it. Well, I'll wash it in a hot water wash, but with regular detergent. You don't need anything like Synthropol for this process here. We won't use that until we actually dye the shirt. But like I say, yeah, I'll rinse it out from the neutralizing solution, and then I'll put it in a hot water wash. And so then after that, we'll take it, and I probably won't need to, I don't believe I need to dry it. I'll just put it right in the soda ash solution. Oh, as far as I was thinking, that stencil, it didn't get that crisp around there. The bleach bled under a little bit. I do like to have my shirts damp, but I probably could have put it in the dryer for 20 minutes just to take out more moisture, still have it slightly damp, but it was probably too damp. That's why it bled under. So when you go to do this, yeah, I suggest probably dry out the shirt a little bit. Don't have it just spun out. That still has too much moisture in it. But anyway, then that's why I make these mistakes, so you don't have to. All right. Anyway, so then, yeah, after neutralized, rinse out, I'll wash it. It'll go in soda ash solution for 20 minutes. And then I will put it back in the washer to spin out that. And then we'll bring it back into the workroom, and we'll start folding and tying our mandala. So I will see you at that point when we're ready to tie it up. Okay, Busters, so here is our bleached out pattern with the stencil. So this is the one you saw me do on camera. And like I said, this one we had soaked and spun out, and the shirt was slightly damp. And, you know, we had the stencil laying flat, but the bleach crept under. Well, and I had mentioned about maybe drying out the shirt mostly. And so I did another shirt, and I wanted to see if that would work. And so I did the same thing. I had soaked it, you know, just in water, spun it out, but then put it in the dryer for 20 minutes. It's a different size shirt. So this one I had to use a foam core shirt form that I had made. And it's an older one, and it's kind of bowed, so it doesn't lay real flat. So I was making sure that the stencil laid down as best as it could. And so you can see, for the most part, it has a lot more definition than this one. But because of I think because of the shape of the foam core, and this was at the bottom, so where I was spraying, it probably hit, and it did bleed under the stencil a bit, quite a bit actually, right here. But so I decided that actually this is kind of a good teaching moment. So if you do projects like this, maybe not with this stencil, or you're using some other, maybe a form to block out and try to bleach, and you get some bleed under, well, okay, how do you fix that? Well, for me, I've got 3 different ways I would suggest to do it. One of them, most of you probably wouldn't be able to do, just because you probably won't have the equipment that I have. What I intend to do to fix this is take some of my airbrush paint, and then with a brush just paint in the missing part of the pattern and clean that up, and then I'll heat set it. And then after it's heat set, then that paint will be permanent to the fabric, and then I can do the tie up for a mandala or whatever I plan on doing in the center, and incorporating the rest of the shirt. And then, so I can do that after it's been heat set, and then we can go through the normal dyeing process. So this is going to end up being a 2-part video. You see that in the thumbnail. So this is going to be part 1, and I'll fix these 2 shirts in part 1, and then we'll do the dyeing in part 2. So, but the other 2 methods that would be easily available for anyone else in my audience would be either going to the craft store and getting some fabric paint, some black fabric paint, and then painting in the pattern, and then whatever instructions they tell you to make the fabric paint permanent on the jar, then certainly do that procedure to make it fast to your shirt, and then you can go ahead and dye over that. Or you might even, what might be easier is to dye your shirt first, and then go back after it's dyed, and then fill in with the fabric paint. Either way, I think, would be fine. And actually, if you want to get really fancy, and then you could do it after, like I say, after the shirts are dyed, puff fabric paint. And so you could go over the whole thing with a puff fabric paint and give it some dimension and texture. That might be pretty cool. And so then the third method to correct this issue, using some thick black dye. And so what you would need is sodium alginate, and I have this in my affiliate link. And so you mix this up, and that will thicken up your dye, and you can use then a paintbrush to apply the thickened black dye to this pattern to clean it up. For me personally, I rarely use thickened dye, only because the amount that you make up and then the amount that you end up using is, I think it's wasteful, and it doesn't, you can keep it like the regular, just thick water in the refrigerator for a while, but I don't do that much that I need thick dye on the type of shirts that I make. So, but this is very popular, and I know there are certain shirt artists that actually mix up multiple colors and use it like paint to paint out, really elaborate pictures, and then maybe do some fold up and dyeing around that. But anyway, so this is another method by which you could, fix a problem like this. But like I said, for myself, I'm going to be using my airbrush paint and then heat setting it. So let's get set up to do that. I'll show you how I'm going to fix these, and then we'll heat set it and then sign off for today, and we will come back in part 2 to tie these up. Seeing we have 2 shirts now, we can do 2 different tie-ups and dye them and see how that turns out. All right, give me a little bit and I'll get set up here, and I'll be right back. Okay, Busters, so here is, this is the second shirt. I figure it has the least repairs to do. I'll do the other one off camera. I'll just do this one to show you how it works. So let me get my form on it. So this is the form that I use for this. It's my extra large, but I don't know if you can see how warped it is. That's kind of why I think this happened. Anyway, let me get this on here and we will move on with the process. All right, we're pretty good. Okay, so like I say, I'm going to be using my Createx opaque black paint. It is a water-based paint, so if you choose to use something like this, I mean, it's just regular. I'm using actually a chisel head brush, and it just cleans up with water, so it's pretty simple in that regard. But to make it kind of fast to the fabric, because if you don't heat set it and you just wash it, it won't wash out entirely, but it will lighten up, and so the bleached area will show through. I do, like I say, have a heat press. For the Createx paint, it is recommended to heat set it at 300 degrees for 30 seconds. And so if you choose to do this and you do have a heat press, then yeah, by all means do that. Like I say, I find it the most convenient for me. Like I say, I think another good alternative is fabric paint. But anyway, so let me start cleaning up this pattern, and then we'll go on to part 2. Okay, Busters, I think that looks pretty good now. I think we're pretty well cleaned up. I mean, I don't want it to be so crisp that it doesn't look like it was, not dyed. So I don't want it to look too hand painted. All right, so that's the end of that. So I'm going to do the exact same thing to the other shirt, and then I'll show you when I go to heat set it how that works out, and then that'll be pretty much the end of this video, and we'll jump into part 2, which will be dyeing both shirts. All right, I'll be right back. Okay, Busters, so here's one of the shirts that's finished. I've got them both finished, but this one's been painted. Now I need to heat set both of them, so I've got the shirt laid down on the tray. You can slide that in. You can see here I've got the machine set for 300 degrees for 30 seconds. So let's get this one heat set. All right, so now that is color fast, and so we can get this one. Actually, I can put this in the soda ash, and then we'll move on to part 2, which is dyeing. Let me grab the other shirt. All right, so lay that on its tray here also. Make sure there's no wrinkles underneath it. Slide that in. And I have actually done this to a few other shirts and washed them, and I know that the airbrush paint then does not fade after it's been heat set and washed. All right, so both shirts are ready to go. All right, so I'll get these in the soda ash, and then we'll dye them up. You'll see me tie it up and dye them in part 2. So come back for part 2.